Okay, so I really want to get your reaction, your response to the autumn statement this week. Autumn, I am so fed up of calling these things statement. They've been budgets, right? They've been proper hardcore budgets, but hey, they don't bring out the red suitcase. So, you know, it's an autumn statement, so they're calling it. But yes, we've got that this week, finally, with our new Chancellor, at least our Chancellor for now, Jeremy Hunt. And really want to know what you make of it. And actually, not only do I want to know what you make of it, I want to know what you make of it in comparison, compared to Kwasi Kwarteng. You know, there was a few takeaways when Jeremy Hunt was giving interviews leading up to the announcements. It was quite pessimistic, and to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be all bad, just really, really take. You know, he said everybody's going to pay more in taxes, so you really thought it was going to be just quite a dire, difficult statement. And in areas, bad news, some positive things. You've got the triple lock protection on pensions, that's staying. For those on benefits, there'll be increases in line with inflation. So yeah, there was some positive, you know, the energy support that's in place, that will stay in place. But the negatives, one of the negatives, it won't be staying on for as long as what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng were hoping to do. Number one, that you're not going to get, you know, that £400 grant that went to everybody. That's gone. The threshold for income tax and NI, that's been frozen, and also the NI increase that Rishi Sunak wanted to do when he was Chancellor, that's not happening. So that's very much the same as to what we saw with Kwasi Kwarteng's statement. When it comes to stamp duty, here we go. Kwasi Kwarteng introduced, you know, a drop in how much some people pay on stamp duty. That's going to stay in place for now, only up until 2025. Who knows what kind of support we're going to get after next year when it comes to our energy bills. So, yeah, it was really, really a mixed bag, and it made me think about why it is that Liz Truss had to go. Why Kwasi Kwarteng was eventually sacked and he left. And basically it was because the markets didn't respond well to the plans of Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss. It was the pound, the markets. Ultimately, it was that forced Liz Truss to leave, not the nation, if you like, coming together and saying, look, we don't like this. So I'm really interested to know, did you find benefits when it came to Kwasi Kwarteng's statement? And what have you got now? Now, what are we talking about here? The last, it could have been 2 days ago, isn't it? The last statement was 8 weeks ago? Yeah, 8 weeks ago. Would have you been better off financially 8 weeks ago than you are now with what we got this week? And that's because I've been looking at some of these figures, and honestly, there were some positives from Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng that people could have really done with right now. But let me know what you think. You know, how's your wallet looking? There was some good, there was some bad. Are you going to be coming off better? If you're not coming off better, how are you feeling about that? Or are you ready? Times are hard. Not just for the UK, although, you know, we've got the worst, we're doing worse economically than, say, Germany and America. But hey, everyone, it's not great for everybody. So is this, you know, we just got to buckle down and just deal with this, get through this, and then the good times will start. Oh, then yes, he did have some good times, but they're not starting till after 2025. Oh, gee, what's going to happen around then for us to get those good times? Oh, yeah, general election. So there are some good points, but good things, but we have to vote for the Tory party to get them. A lot of them. But yeah, we're going to talk to two economists to really dig deep, look at, you know, the pros, the cons, what they think maybe our Chancellor should have done. But also want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Text talk to 87222. You can also tweet me at Claudia-Liza TV and tweet at TalkTV. But let's take a look at some of the big stories this week with my political panel. Joining me now is Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics at the Clinton Institute, which is at the University College Dublin. And Jason Reid, he's UK lead at Young Voices. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Claudia-Liza.
Professor Lucas, well, this is like you've had a job, you've had a promotion since the last time we spoke.
Either that or they decided to try to get me out of the country. But yeah, I'll take it as a positive and say that
it is a positive. Well, congrats. So lovely to see that you're doing so well since last time we spoke. Jason, you're doing good too. I don't want to leave you out.
I'm doing great, Jason. So are you, Claudia-Liza.
But yes, look, let's talk. Oh, gosh, another statement. This not a fiscal statement. This is the autumn statement from Jeremy Hunt this week. Jason, look, what did you make of it? Because, as I said a moment ago, leading up to this, Jeremy Hunt doing his interviews, his rounds, he was painting a very bleak picture. Was it as bleak as maybe some might have anticipated?
Well, he definitely did a lot of expectation management in the run-up to that statement to make everyone, as you say, think that it was going to be really bad, perhaps so that when it was actually announced, it didn't seem quite as bad in comparison. I'm afraid it still is pretty bad when you look at the tax burden and how it continues to grow and grow. But we all know that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng made some very, very big mistakes with their mini budget. But I think ultimately the intention was the right one, the intention to get taxes down and get the economy growing. That is what we need to happen. They went too far and too fast, and now we've got the so-called sensible people back in charge. And you can see exactly why Jeremy Hunt is doing what he's doing. He needs to keep the cost of borrowing as low as possible. But the problem is we're in this, what people call a doom loop now, where public spending is just continuing to go up. And that was part of the statement as well. Taxes continuing to go up 5-6 years into the future now with these thresholds frozen despite inflation. And it's not clear what the way out is going to be unless we get some quite substantial economic growth pretty soon.
Scott, what was your response, your reaction to the autumn statement?
It's the budget that was necessary in what is a very, very difficult time for the country. It's the budget that should have been the budget that Truss and Sunak put out. Let me explain why, Claudia-Liza, because there's a lot of backlash here, which is, why is Jeremy Hunt not lowering taxes? Why isn't he giving us all these good things that Truss supposedly promised?
Criticism that the middle earners are being squeezed.
Well, it was actually the Sunak-Truss budget. Not Sunak-Truss budget, the Truss-Kwarteng budget. Let me be clear here.
I know, gosh, who knows, right? We can get all your chancellors really confused, can't you, this time?
Exactly. The Truss-Kwarteng budget gave benefits to the wealthiest people in Britain. People in the middle and lower classes disproportionately got far less. But the important thing is, and then in the space of a couple hours, they created a £60 billion hole in the UK budget. In other words, they cut these taxes with no way of providing revenues to cover them. And you were asking why the markets reacted the way they did. It wasn't just the markets. The fact is that because of that irresponsible, effectively deficit spending, which could not be covered, you were facing the collapse of certain pension funds within hours of that budget taking place. You were facing people paying hundreds of pounds more per month on a mortgage if they had one. And if you didn't have a mortgage but happened to be renting a house, you were still facing increasing cost in terms of the cost of living. And you weren't receiving that much in terms of tax benefit. That just was not sustainable. It was like wanting to have a unicorn for Christmas. You're not going to get it. And so what Jeremy Hunt did with Rishi Sunak as prime minister is begin to realize this. You have to find some revenues from somewhere. So that means you can't cut taxes at this point. It means that you do need to increase windfall taxes on energy companies making record-setting profits. And secondly, you have to have a realistic way forward, given that we are in recession and that we will be in recession until 2024 because of a combination of three things. One, the global situation. Two, the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic. And three, most importantly, because of the self-inflicted wound of Brexit, which is the one thing a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Why is that most important, Professor Lucas?
It's the most important. The UK weakened its economy structurally, and I appreciate what Jacob's saying. We would like to get back to a point where we can lower taxes, have increased productivity. We will not be in a position to get that economic growth for years because we've cut ourselves off from the world and we've cut our trade and investment opportunities.
Jason, what did you make of Kwasi Kwarteng's fiscal statement, actually?
Well, at first, my initial reaction was that it was really encouraging to see politicians at the top of government determined to cut taxes. We've had a Conservative government for 12 years, and there hasn't really been that appetite. Of course, it went wrong very, very quickly, and it was the right thing for it to be rolled back, and it's right that we no longer have Liz Truss or Kwasi Kwarteng in government. But as I say, we've gone too far the other way. This problem that Jeremy Hunt was trying to solve with his statement about the fiscal hole, it's a very, very difficult problem to solve. It's a difficult problem to identify in the first place. There was a lot of guesswork going on about how big this hole actually is, and so how much money you need to find. Anything between 40 and 80 billion pounds was thrown around in the few days and weeks leading up to the statement. And that's because it requires a lot of estimations about what's going to happen in the future with growth, with interest rates, with inflation. And we just don't know what's going to happen in 2027 and 28. So we can't estimate the size of that hole. And so what Jeremy Hunt has done has erred on the side of extreme caution, of raising taxes, I think, more than was necessary at the moment in order to keep the bond markets on side.
So out of interest, which statement do you prefer?
Well, this is an impossible question, Claudia-Liza. I like the intention of the first one. I like the execution of the second one. If we could have some kind of combination of the two, that would be perfect. But at the moment, we're stuck in this doom loop with no way out. If public spending keeps going up, taxes are just going to have to keep going up as well. And then there will become a crunch point where funding the NHS and funding pensions becomes unaffordable. And I don't know what happens at that point, but that's where we're heading.
Scott, you were disagreeing.
Well, you know, I appreciate, again, what Jacob would like. But let's talk about the couple of points of realism here. First of all, public spending is not increasing that significantly when you talk compared to the rate of inflation. We do not have a real-term increase in the type of funding for essential public services that are taking place. And that raises the question of, if you want an effective health service, if you want a decent police force, if you want education, how do you pay for it? And you have to pay for it through taxation and through increased productivity. Now, because we do not have increased productivity in the economy right now, the only way that you're going to be able to provide for the infrastructure of this country is to continue to have a realistic budget. So, no, this was not extreme caution. And the idea that we don't know what's going to happen, we knew exactly what's going to happen. That was the whole point. That was the point that Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak, the markets, most of the Conservative Party, as well as the Labour Party, as well as other parties, knew that the Truss Kwarteng budget was a wish. It was a fantasy, and it was a badly, badly damaging fantasy, because when you talk about lowering taxes, if you do not have a sound economy, just simply means that those at the top will do better off, and those at the bottom will suffer the pain.
Okay. Should we talk I'm a Celebrity? Get me out of here. I know that's what many people... It's linked to politics because, of course, Matt Hancock went in, and he's still in. The first eviction was yesterday, and he survived. People... So it's okay, there's a couple of things here. Either people really like him, and so they're saving him, or they despise him, and they want him to do as many horrid challenges as possible. But Jason, this could ruin his political career. He might be barred from standing as a Tory at the next election.
Yeah, he finds himself in a difficult spot because when Nadine Dorries went into the jungle a few years ago, also a Conservative MP, of course, she did have the whip removed in the same way. It took about 6 months for the party to give it back to her, but because the next election is so soon, in a couple of years' time, I don't think the rules allow for that kind of time for them to think about whether to give the whip back or not, which could mean that he can't stand as a Conservative at the next election. I would imagine he probably knows that, and he probably knew that before he made the decision to go into the jungle. He's clearly pivoting away from politics. I think he was probably hoping for a job in Rishi Sunak's government, but when that didn't happen, he kind of went for his last chance saloon. And I think, to be honest, it's gone a lot better than anyone thought it would go. It's gone a lot better than I thought it would. I think a lot of people are developing a soft spot for him, which is why he's at least getting some votes, because he's stayed in past the first elimination. And that's helped, of course, by the fact that the dynamics with the other celebrities has been really interesting to watch. Boy George, in particular, has tried to pick a fight with him about 4 times. For completely spurious reasons. I think the most recent one was, "You looked at me funny." And what he found when he did that was that Matt Hancock was just a really nice guy and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I think you're great and we get along great." And that was it. And so it seems to be a lot of people developing a soft spot for him.
You're so right. I presented Jeremy Vine yesterday, and I cannot tell you, we had people who still despised him. They just said, no, he's not going to pull one over me. Other people said, actually, I did despise him before he went in, and actually he's won me over. And it's maybe because of these type of challenges, Scott. He's gone in there, he's thrown himself in, and he got 7 out of 11 stars. I've been I've been informed by our showbiz editor and also my producer, Johnny Seifert. So he's been getting lots of stars and been doing really, really well when it comes to those challenges, Scott. Has he won you over?
Don't care. He cheated on his family. He cheated on the country during the pandemic. And he's cheating on his constituents now. If he wants to be a celebrity, then leave Parliament. If he wants to make money, then get out of Westminster and do whatever you want to. Be part of this celebrity culture.
Says for charity.
Well, fine. If he wants to donate and provide money for charity, that's absolutely fine as well. Do it. But do it away from your responsibilities as a politician. Give that up. If you want to be a celebrity and still make it in politics, go over to America, join certain folks over there who have created the spectacle that has really hurt U.S. politics over here, but don't inflict it on us. He may be a really nice guy, but you know what? I want a guy who day to day is there for his constituents, not just on the health issues that were around the pandemic, but in terms of the housing issues, in terms of education, in terms of making this a better country, the issues we've been talking about. And if he can't be bothered to talk about those issues for whatever reason, that he's thousands of miles away, off with you, my son. It used to be politicians got tarred and feathered for doing their job badly. Well, Matt Hancock's getting tarred and feathered. He just happens to be doing it to get a better rating.
Okay, Scott Lucas, Professor Scott Lucas and Jason Reed, an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thanks so much for joining me.